Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the unit leader briefing for today. Sorry about the technical difficulties that we are having. We had a hint that this might be happening last night as we were receiving some strange messages about this Zoom link through Outlook. So thanks for your patience, and I think we'll have more folks joining us here in the next few minutes. So move this over. Today's agenda includes the following items, and then if we have other items you'd like to talk about, we certainly can. So I'll start out talking about this COVID-19. It's budget season at the county level, right? And visit about some EZC messaging. And all this kind of wraps together as I'll describe just a moment. We'll also visit about COVID-19 PPE and what we're providing, and see if you're having any challenges in obtaining the kind of PPE that you need for your office and meetings as well. We've had a number of questions about conducting virtual extension board meetings since the governor's executive order allowing public agencies to do that has expired in June. And so what are we allowed to do going forward in July and moving ahead? We'll talk a little bit about meeting program event readiness, what that looks like as we start to engage in more in-person programming and meeting opportunities here the next weeks and months. Talk about a few important dates, and then any other topics that you'd like to visit about will be on the agenda as you'd like. So let's just get started with this. And we'll start with the budget, the COVID EZC messaging. This is something that we've been working with a marketing firm on for a few weeks and months now, working with David Buchholz and Teresa Paulson, who have been helping us think about how Extension more effectively markets what we're doing, and on a number of fronts. So COVID was one of those unexpected opportunities that we had to do some marketing around. So I'll share what we're doing in that regard. We also have our engagement zone model, which of course launched in 2020. And how do we convey what we're doing with our engagement zones to stakeholders as well? And then budgets are upon us. So some of you have already started those conversations with your county boards. Others are probably beginning those conversations this month. So our plan is, and I'll show these documents in just a moment, is that I plan to send an email to Extension Board members. It'll probably be early next week. And it will be an email just introducing them to our engagement zone coordinators. It'll be thanking them for their support through COVID and helping us asking them to help support our budget request with our county boards moving forward. And then I'm going to ask that that you work with your engagement zone leader, your engagement zone coordinators, to send a follow-up email to your Extension Board members directly with the very same documents, a little different messaging, but consistent with the same three topics I just mentioned: COVID, budget, and introducing EZCs. To make sure all of our Extension Board members are well aware of what we're doing in each of those arenas. So I mentioned Grass Tops here. So who knows what Grass Tops marketing is? Let's go and type in the chat if that's a term that you're familiar with. We talk about grassroots a lot, but when we talk about Grass Tops, what does that mean? That might be a new term.
Is it what you see on top? You don't see those roots or something that way? Is that you're leaning toward?
Yeah, that's along the right line, Todd. So Grass Tops would be the individuals, in our case, it's Extension Board members. And it could be others in the community too, but it's stakeholders that, Linda, would you check and see where the background noise is coming from? See if you can mute that microphone for me, thanks. So Grass Tops will be our extension board members because they're out there in front. They're listening to people in the community. They understand extension work in the region, and they are our voice, a strong voice for us with our county board members, and can be with state senators too. Thinking more about county board members today in this instance. So, please go ahead and mute your So what this will do is engage our extension boards in a larger way to help us convey the new EZC model to in our regions. It will help us describe what we've been doing relative to our COVID-19 response, and it will also help us as we have budget discussions moving forward. And they all kind of really tie together. So I want to share with you, just share an example of the documents we're describing here. So this is one that you may be familiar with. I think we shared this in a recent chat with Chuck and Dave, but this is the COVID challenge document. And this is a piece that we developed to help describe to stakeholders what Extension's been doing during the COVID pandemic. There's perceptions potentially that we're working from home, we're not in the office as much as we had been in the past, we're not doing as many in-person meetings, but what have we been up to? And so this is a high-level document that describes how we've still been engaging with youth and adults and businesses in a number of ways to just give stakeholders an idea of how Nebraska Extension has responded. And you can see in the opening paragraph that it feeds off of a year ago and how Extension was there and ready to respond relative to the 2019 floods. So just a nice piece that you can share with any stakeholders, volunteers, to give them a sense of what we're doing overall across the state with Extension. What would be great is to have some local examples to talk about specifically to your county or your region in this respect as well. So as a county board member might read through this, I can see here, she's saying, well, tell me exactly how you were working with 4-Hers during COVID times, which includes current times, or how are you connecting with farmers or ranchers or families? So that's the important piece that needs to accompany this COVID document. The other piece that's probably new to everyone is an engagement zone coordinator introduction. So one of these is being developed for each of our engagement zone coordinators. This is Angie's from eastern part of the state, Zone 8. And the top is just some contact information. There's the zone that Angie works in. And down below is a description of what the engagement zone coordinator role was designed to do. So it talks about fostering talent, better engagement with extension professionals. It speaks to strengthening, growing connections, relationships with stakeholders, and the greater engagement goal that we have of connecting with more community partners and connecting the university to our communities and what engagement looks like going forward. So these are the two documents that will accompany the email that I'll send directly to extension board members. And I will let you know when that happens, so you're aware that that's been sent. And then I'm asking that unit leaders work with your respective engagement zone coordinator to send a follow-up directly to your extension board members. And you'll have these two documents to include with that. I'll actually send you a draft of what that email might look like. You're welcome to tweak it as it makes sense for your current situation. The idea is to do everything we can to make sure we're connecting with extension board members, our Grass Tops partners, and connecting with our bigger stakeholders in the region, which are our county boards, our supervisors, or commissioners. So I wanted to let you know that is in play, and it's good timing for 3 reasons. One is it's budget time and we need to be in good communication with our county boards. Number two, we're still in the COVID pandemic, and we need to continue to update them on where we are and how we're operating. And number three, some have been introduced to their engagement zone coordinator, and some haven't. Really, that's due in large part to the COVID times where we haven't been able to get out and be in touch with our extension boards as early as we had liked to be this spring. So this is a way of kind of a soft launch to engaging our county boards in that respect. Any questions about that process as it rolls out in the next week or so? And while I'm waiting for any questions you might have there, the COVID document, COVID extension response, was also sent to NACO. I think it was one of the last things that Chuck probably did before he retired. He sent a note to Larry Dix with that document. And so I think he asked him if he would maybe post that on the NACO website. So a multi-pronged approach to connecting with our county stakeholders, decision makers, to let them know extension is alive and well and continuing to do our mission work in their region. All right, I'm going to move on to the next item if there's no questions there. So there are three documents that I'm going to share directly with you as unit leaders. And these are documents that are not for distribution. These are different than the two I just showed you. These are three additional documents that we plan to use to talk about Nebraska extension. So the first one are some talking about points around the engagement zone model, and they support that introductory piece that I shared earlier. And will just be some good points for you to be aware of and be thinking about as you have conversations with extension board members or maybe even county board members about your local engagement zone coordinator. Not for distribution. It's just something for you to use for your own personal use. I'll also send you out what we're calling our extension brand statements for our teams. And so these are brief paragraphs around each of our issue teams and how we describe our issue team works. So I think if you asked everyone online today to describe the invasive species issue team, everyone would have a little bit different take on that and what it's about. So what we've tried to do is design a brief paragraph around each of our issue teams that helps us communicate what that team focuses on and how they operate. And those, again, that's something for you to use as a resource. It's not something we send out or share out, but it's something that you can use as someone asks you, so tell me about these issue teams or a specific issue team. How do you respond and share information about it? And then extension character. An extension character document is about who we are, how extension operates, what's important to us. You'll see a connection to our areas of excellence in that document. What I'd like you to do is look over these three documents and just send feedback back to me. And I may also include the emails for the marketing individuals I mentioned earlier, so you can send comments directly to them as well. So I'll give you that information in the email, but I'd like your feedback. The feedback I'm looking for is, does this sound like extension? Is this how you would describe extension? What would you change in these documents? So before we distribute these broadly, we will make sure we get your feedback, and we'll also be touching base with the issue team leaders, for example, with the brand statements for teams. But these are items that I'll send in a separate correspondence to all of you to take a look at and give us some feedback on. So this all lends to consistency in the organization and how we connect with stakeholders. Some of this can be used with state senators when we're in conversation with them as well, and other community leaders or supporters that we have these types of conversations with. So these are tools in the toolbox. The other question that I will ask when I send these documents to you to review is what else would be useful? Are there tools that will be useful to you as perhaps you are asked to present to a civic group or any group about Nebraska extension? We've had suggestions, for example, maybe a a skeleton slide deck, PowerPoint slide deck. They would talk about big picture, high level around Nebraska Extension, and you could fill in with the local flavor what Extension looks like in your region. Be interested in knowing what are some other tools or thoughts you have around items we could provide to be more consistent in our messaging and would help you in this regard. And this was just the talking points, just a few of them. We have a whole page of these talking points around engagement zone coordinator roles. This is the brand character, a little bit of what it looks like. You'll see it talks about Nebraska is here to serve family, children, businesses, etc. We're local, we're collaborative. There's a number of bullet points that we talk around brand character. And the brand statements for the team. So each of those teams, entrepreneurship team, crops and livestock economics, and so on throughout our issue teams. So questions, thoughts, comments around our communication efforts with our extension boards and county boards in the next couple of weeks. Okay, and I realize that you're in different stages of these conversations. So as we send out these template emails, feel free to adjust, adapt those so they make sense as you show these documents and correspond with those individuals. I'd like to spend just a few minutes on COVID-19 personal protective equipment. So touch on hand sanitizer dispensers, refills, and signage. So you'll recall that a few weeks ago, I shared an email with each of you regarding the hand sanitizer dispensers. So most counties received the gallon jugs with the pump dispenser. That was all that was available at that time, except I think at that time there were 3 of the large hand sanitizer stations available. And we did distribute those 3 large stations to Hall County, Douglas, and Sarpy, and Lancaster. We requested additional large hand sanitizer stations, and we just provided another 10 or 11 of those here recently. And so I sent a note to the offices that will be receiving those this morning. And those are primarily more of our mid-size offices where we have larger numbers of staff and higher traffic level with clientele. So I know there was a lot of interest in the large hand sanitizer stations, but they're just really hard to come by. So hopefully the small ones are helping you in your local offices. We are sending refills out to the centers where you picked up your dispensers. So that's the research and extension centers, as well as Haskell Ag Lab and South Central Ag Lab. And now when you go to pick up refills, you can pick up a couple gallons at a time. And what we ask you to do is just bring your empty jug. So you can just take a couple jugs with you as you leave, or someone there will refill your jug. But and I would also encourage you to carpool this effort. So if someone from your region is heading to get refills, see if you perhaps that office could pick up the refills for multiple offices in your region. So we're not driving a long ways for a couple gallons of sanitizer for one office. Yeah, are the plans to build the large stations available? I've made that request. I've asked for the plans to make these large stations because they're just basically PVC pipe and the dispenser pumps. And there was one part on the large dispenser stations, and it's actually where the pump attaches to the PVC. And originally the Innovation Campus was having to 3D print that part. My understanding is that's now commercially available. And so Ron Yoder is in the process of trying to obtain those plans so I can share those out with you. We've had requests from a number of fair boards for those plans, and I can share out a photo of what they look like without the cover on them, so that you can see exactly how they're put together. But the key is finding that adapter so you can actually attach a pump dispenser to the PVC. So more to come on that as I hear. And I just also wanted to share that Innovation Campus and INR is really gracious in helping us obtain what they've been able to provide for hand sanitizer. As you can imagine, they're producing hand sanitizer for all of the NU campuses, for the medical field, healthcare field, meatpacking industry. So demand has been really, really high, and they've been really gracious to work with us to provide the material. It's probably about $20 a gallon is what the value of this is. And then helping us get it not in your backyard, but at least close to a distribution center where you can have somewhat convenient access to it. I want to remind everyone that there's a lot of COVID-19 resources on the My Extension website. I'm probably mostly familiar with that, but we keep adding resources there. One that was just added recently was a UNL Communications box site. So as you think about signage for your office that you might need that we weren't providing earlier, UNL's provided a lot of different options for door signage, floor signage, you name it. And so I encourage you to take a look at what's there, and you are welcome to print off those signs and use those as they work for you in your respective offices. So regarding PPE, I'd be curious if what other needs you currently have as far as personal protective equipment. Are there items you're having a hard time finding, accessing? I will send out a reminder as far as the hand sanitizer and which distribution site has the refills available for your respective county. So I'll resend that. All right, seeing some folks responding just privately that they're good on PPE. You may have noticed in UNL today that there was a note around providing a couple of cloth face masks for all UNL employees. I understand that that's still in process. So we've asked those just to be sent directly to Extension Administration. And when we receive those, we'll send those out to each of your offices. So I think that is still in the works. That'll help a little bit. And just wanted to let you know that that's how that will work for Extension. And there will also be a website available through INR to purchase PPE, which will be very comprehensive. It'll be gowns, masks, gloves, etc. So it'll be another resource that should be up and running here soon. That may be another option if you're having a difficult time finding resources locally. So disinfecting wipes. So I think those will be on that website for purchase as well. So let's watch for that when that emerges. All right. Feel free to send me notes regarding any challenges you're having with PPE and making sure that we're well prepared and supplied in that arena. This is a topic that many of you are asking about in late June as the governor's executive order to relax the requirement for some boards to meet in person. He had allowed public meetings to be held virtually for a number of weeks, and then that ended end of June. So this is still a work in progress, but I want to share with you where we are at and find out from you if I have some questions that I've asked legal counsel, and I want to see if you have additional questions that you would like me to ask them as well. So if you read the Open Meetings Act, there's a few key points that I think most are familiar with. One is that even if you're hosting an extension board meeting virtually, you have to have reasonable arrangements for accommodations. So a way, an avenue for the public to participate not in listening, but hearing, speaking, etc. Need to have a copy of the documents that are available to the public, available to those individuals who are joining virtually as well. There's a clause in there, this is one we have a question about, that at least one member of the board is present at each site of the video or telephone conference. One of the questions that we have has to do with whether that's a physical site where the public has access, or what exactly, how we interpret that part of the act. I know in some cases, probably in Jenny Nixon's world, for example, I think we have extension board members in all 3 counties and at a physical site, and Jenny, you're connecting with them. In other situations, all of our extension board members are in their homes. And that's where the question comes into play, is that allowable, or do we have to have, for example, at least one public site, or a physical site where the public can attend in person? There's also a clause in the act that indicates that no more than half of the annual board meetings can be held via video or telephone conference. And the last bullet, so video conferences allowed for extension boards that cover one county, teleconferences, an option for multi-county boards. And so these are some of the interesting pieces of the Open Meetings Act. And so I've been in contact with NACO and visiting with Larry Dix about how NACO interprets Open Meeting Act relative to extension boards. And I've also been in contact with NU Legal Counsel, and I've received different interpretations from both. And so I'm in the process of asking for a meeting between both legal counsel so we can work this out and know for sure where we stand. These are some of the questions that I plan to ask. One is, what is reasonable accommodations for the public to participate, and how they would interpret that? That also might be a question that you might want to ask your local county attorney too, as we move forward with this. But I'm going to find out from NACO and NU Legal Counsel how they interpret this. How many these conferences are allowed annually? I mentioned that my interpretation is up to 1/2 of your meetings annually can be held virtually. I've also heard from NACO that maybe only 2. So need clarity on that. I talked earlier about what does it mean that one member of the board is present at each site of the video or telephone conference. The physical presence where the public has access, or could that be from your home? And then the question that a lot of you are asking as COVID launched, and that is, what does public notice for a Zoom meeting look like? Do I have to put the Zoom link, password in the announcement? Or can I simply say that our extension board meeting is being held virtually via Zoom? Please contact our office for connection information. And obviously, we're trying to avoid being Zoom bombed. And that has happened in at least a couple situations with extension boards in the last couple of months. So that's real, and we really want to try to avoid that. So these are a few questions that I'm planning to ask. And if you have additional questions for clarity on what Zoom, so video or telephone conference meetings would look like for your extension board, please type those in the chat, and we'll capture our chat, and I'll make sure that those are lifted up during our conversations. Yeah, so do extension board members who join via Zoom count towards a quorum? It's a great question. I had that conversation with NACO as well, because the first reaction from NACO was that only those physically present at a meeting counted towards the quorum. And so that was sort of the beginning of our conversation. And I think we're at the point now where all parties feel like we need to get together and come to consensus on how we're going to interpret Open Meeting Act for extension boards. Those are exactly the kind of questions that I'm interested in, is those details, situations you've run into that we need more clarity around. Good. Another question about how do you take votes? Or if you have a hybrid meeting, some individuals are there in person and some are on virtually. I think a question that goes along with that is, how do you know? So if someone's on the phone, is it the person you think it is? If they're on via Zoom and don't have their camera on, do they count? If you can't actually verify that it's that person on the other end of the line, so to speak. So I wanted you to know we're working on this. Hopefully we'll have clarity soon. This has been a long journey, so I think it's going to take our legal minds to bring us to a decision. Another thing I want to touch on, because we are now in a point in time where obviously as we moved through June, we opened up extension to in-person meetings, which can mean these range from extension board meetings to program meetings to events to programs. And we've been talking about what that looks like at county fairs for a while, and really pleased with how you've worked through that to date and how that seems to be going. But I wanted to talk here specifically about educational meetings going forward as we start thinking about scheduling those and moving forward in this realm. And this is a review of what we talked about in a recent chat with Dave and Chuck. So this is, if you go to the My Extension website, COVID-19, and you look at meeting, event, program readiness, these are some of the high points of that document. And so what I really want you to help those in your office think about and consider is just think about the specific program and the audience that we're engaging and what makes the most sense. Thinking about the learning outcomes that you have in mind, and whether that's in person, online, or hybrid. This is very similar to the decision-making process that's being used on campus as we think about courses and how they are being delivered this fall semester. And then thinking about how you prepare to implement the measures that you need for your particular meeting. And there are lots of things that come into play here. Is it indoors? Is it outdoors? How many people can you actually have in an indoor facility to maintain 6 foot distance, for example? What's the ventilation like? In some cases we have audiences who, for example, in the childcare world, that probably don't want to or don't want to be in an in-person meeting just because there's that opportunity to contract the virus and take it back to their practice. So there's a number of things to be thinking about here, as well as our own employees' health as well. If you have underlying health issues and this is a serious risk, then we want to think about that too, and think about how you engage with your audiences as well. A reminder, these are of several documents that are up on the My Extension website, everything from PPE to, the distancing. Can you avoid providing food and drink? What does sanitation look like? Wearing a face mask, facial covering, or 6 foot distance. Keeping in touch with those local health department guidelines. Keeping track of everyone who attends an in-person meeting. So if contact tracing is required, we can get in touch with those individuals very conveniently. And then just taking a look at this document that goes into much more detail online. To me, it's really a practice of just thinking through the steps and what it would look like, and is it possible? And is it practical to do this? We have individuals who are really anxious to engage in person as far as clientele, but we want to do this in a safe, practical way. And I'd also ask you to think about your local venue too. If you're in a county facility, are there county guidelines, practices that should be considered as well? Or if you're visiting at a guest venue, you're renting a facility, or maybe hosting at a school or VFW, a community center, what are guidelines or regulations they have in place that we need to be cognizant of as we work through this decision-making process? questions that you have about meetings, programming going forward, questions you've had from colleagues in your office. Yep, and we will share these slides out as far as this recording. We'll definitely do that. There's a question around, can we still use Zoom, especially with bad weather? And I believe there is an emergency clause in the Open Meetings Act. And that's a question I can ask our legal counsel as well. But the way I would interpret that personally is that that can be used occasionally, but should not be used routinely. So yeah, I think that there may be a clause in there that would provide for that type of situation where it's kind of a short notice. You didn't know it was on the horizon, it happened, and this is the only way you can connect. So I think in that situation with bad weather, for example, you think about whether can we delay the meeting, can we postpone the meeting, or do we have critical business that we need to conduct now? Maybe it's relative to personnel or budget that warrants having a meeting virtually at that time. Good questions. All right, continue to just type your thoughts and questions in the chat box. And let's really think about this going forward. How can we best engage with our audiences? The way I think about this is, how do we continue our mission? Are we fulfilling the mission of Nebraska Extension and the Land Grant Institution in the work that we're doing? And we've been doing a great job of doing this during the initial COVID time, but what does that look like going forward? And obviously, the COVID cases ebb and flow by region. And so what's reasonable today may not be reasonable in 2 weeks, or vice versa. And so we want to be very in tune with what's happening locally with the risk. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move on here. So some important dates want to make sure you have on your calendar. So you're probably keenly aware that the Nebraska legislature going into session, and we'll be in session for a month or so. I've been visiting with Heath Mello, Michelle Waite. At the moment, there are no immediate concerns that are relative to our budget, but of course that can all change in a legislative session. So I just ask that you be ready in case we run into any issues the next month or so. If we need to connect with state senators, I know a lot of you have great relationships with senators. We may ask you or your extension board members to do that. But this is kind of a wait and see right now to see what the next month or so looks like as we listen in and see what this not extended, but this continuing session of the Nebraska legislature looks like. Nebraska State Fair is on, as you know, in a limited fashion, 4-H and FFA predominantly, and our big weekend for 4-H is the first weekend of State Fair, and then of course our static exhibits will be there throughout the week. So another opportunity for us to be visible, but in a very measured way and in a safe way. As a lot of planning has been put into what this looks like for our 4-Hers families and for extension professionals who will be working on site. Front Door Forum will go virtual. That decision was made here recently, so that will be virtual. It's the 7th through the 9th. It is a 3-day event. The reason for that is that on the 8th, we're offering Trust Edge, a 1-day version of Trust Edge to all participants at Front Door Forum. And so that's a great opportunity to engage a lot of support staff statewide with a program and experience that a lot of you have had the opportunity to experience. I'd encourage you to do everything you can to encourage and support your support staff in participating in Front Door Forum. This is probably an opportunity for more support staff to participate in Front Door Forum than have previously when it when it would have been in person, face to face. So think about what you could do in your office to make sure that they are available and not interrupted routinely as they try to participate in what is really a once a year opportunity for them to engage with their peer group, with their colleagues, and in professional development. So watch for the announcement on this, which I suspect will come out probably later this month as Front Door Forum Committee decides what this virtual experience looks like. And of course, we have a Nebraska Extension Fall Conference and NCEA Fall Conference, November 17th through 19th. Both will be virtual. I know NCEA has been working hard on their agenda, and they have some fun ideas incorporated into their thoughts. And we are working on this with Extension Leadership Team as well. So more to come on what the first day and a half of our fall conference will look like. But it will be different. We're thinking very intentionally about how we make that a great experience with the limitations we have with the virtual opportunity here. All right, I'm checking the chat box. Cost for Front Door Forum. I am not sure what the cost will be, especially since it's virtual. I'm not sure yet. Great question for the committee, and I'm sure that'll be coming out here very soon, but I would expect it to be less than it would have been previously. Yep. More to come on the schedule for Front Door Forum. The decision to go virtual is just made within the last week or so. So I know they've been thinking about it, but probably scrambling a little bit to think about exactly what the schedule is going to look like. And I know Lisa Caslin's working with them to think through that. All right, I just want to open it up and see what other topics, questions, thoughts that unit leaders have that you'd like to discuss in our remaining time. You can send those to me privately or just to everyone in the chat box if you wish. As you're thinking about maybe some of those thoughts, I just want to take this opportunity to thank all of you. This has been a tough spring and summer, and it continues to be challenging for everyone. And you're in a key role in your offices. I mean, you're the go-to person, right? For everything from water leaks to disgruntled customers to COVID to flooding that's happening in your region, and you're working with county stakeholders with the budget. So it's a very important role and so important to the success of Extension across the state. So I want you to know it's appreciated. I've served in your role. I know a lot of what's on your plate. Never served as unit leader during the kind of trying times that we've had recently. So I can't say I've been in your shoes, but I can tell you I really appreciate what you bring to the table. And then working with your engagement zone coordinators, they have worked so hard, and we're so excited and anxious to connect with all of you and Extension Board members and everyone in your offices when we started the engagement zone venture first part of this year. And COVID just really slowed that down. And so I know they were disappointed across the board that they haven't had as much opportunities as they wanted to join you in person and visit in person. But I know a lot of that's being done virtually as well, and know that they are anxious to connect. So anything you can do to help our EZCs do that would be much appreciated. As we circle back to what I started talking about earlier today. So as we circle back to what I was commenting about earlier today at the beginning of this webinar, the communication with our Extension Board members, looking forward to you and your engagement zone coordinator sending out that email to your Extension Board members with the documents we mentioned, introducing your EZC, just connecting with the Extension Board members, making sure that The EZC, the unit leader, the extension board members are all in lockstep as we communicate with county board members in the coming few weeks and months, and for a long time beyond then. But this introductory period is really important in how we set the stage and make this introduction and talk about what extension is, what we've been up to, and our plans going forward, and how much we appreciate the county support. We are a huge resource, an asset at the county level, and a lot of your board members would talk to you about that. Others may think that during COVID times that we haven't been active because they haven't seen us. We haven't been visible in the traditional sense, but we have been, and you can share with them what that's looked like and how that's worked for you. And I know in some cases you've even helped them, to help the county boards be successful with their virtual meetings as well. In addition to sharing what we are doing, I'd encourage you to ask them what they need, because they have struggled just like every other organization. So ask your county board members, is there anything Extension can do to help the county, to help you out? And perhaps there'll be something that we can do for them as well, in addition to what we do educationally and programmatically, that would help them through these trying times too. Oh, and there's a question here also about one time there was discussion about changing the title of unit leader to lead educator. Yep, that is still in the works. And actually what's going on now is it's really cool. The engagement zone coordinators are working in small groups, in groups of 3 or so, and they're focusing on a number of really important issues. One of those has to do with this, with the relationship and the duties balance between the unit leaders and engagement zone coordinators. There's another group that's working on county relationships, which ties in a lot what we talked about today. And they have a number of projects that they are working on collectively that will be moving forward here, I would expect, with more communication in the next couple, 3 months. So this is one of those, the unit leader, lead educator relationship, and what that looks like going forward. So that is definitely still in the plans. Much of this was just delayed because of our investment in time in COVID in the last few months. All right, seeing no other questions, I just want to thank all of you for being on today. Thanks again for your leadership, for doing everything you do. And as you know, you can connect with me directly at any time or through your engagement zone coordinator to work through whatever the challenges or opportunities are at the local level. So appreciate you so much. Let's continue to stay in touch and work together to move Extension forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.